front of everyone who was at immigration, I put my hands up like this and said, "Arrest me." Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Umar Butt. I've been stopped under Schedule 7 approximately 40 times, and I'm the only person in the UK who's been able to win a Schedule 7 charge in court.
You've been detained under paragraph 6 of Schedule 7 to the Terrorism Act 2000 so that I can question you to determine whether you appear to be a person who is or has been concerned in the commission, preparation or instigation of acts of terrorism.
Excuse me, I need to pray. It's my time to pray.
The way I felt and the way that every person I know who's been stopped under Schedule 7 feels, the first thing that hits you is fear and anxiety. The first time I was ever stopped for a Schedule 7 stop, I was with my family in 2005. I had 5 children and my wife. Whilst going through the immigration process, I noticed that the officers behind the immigration officer were taking an interest in me and my family. Eventually, after crossing immigration, I was stopped and the officer asked for my passport and then separated me from my family. The process basically took close to 6 hours. I was asked everything under the sun, and I was the most cooperative person that I could ever be. I was literally their dog. If they snapped their fingers, I did whatever I needed to do with attention, gave them information, even stuff that they weren't even asking for, to be helpful. At the end of the interview, I was thanked. All the way through I was thanked, and I was told I was a good boy, and just like you do with a dog. And then at the end, I was taken back to meet my family. What I found odd was, as I was taken through the door and I could see my family, the door was abruptly behind me, just closed. There was no goodbye, there was no nothing. I looked at my family, I could see that all my family members, a majority of them, were crying and shaking. So I walked up to them to ask, "What's wrong? I'm here." And they said, "We were told that you were going inside for 25 years. Forget about it." At that point, I got quite annoyed because I had done everything requested of me, if not more. Towards the police officers, I was polite, I was courteous, did everything, I didn't make any inconvenience to them whatsoever. And in return, my family get traumatized. I actually felt as though I'd been robbed and I'd helped the police officers rob me. Went back to information desk, specifically requested for the police officers because I wanted to know why they did what they did. And I was told that they did not want to speak to me. And it was at that point that I told them that I'm taking an oath that the next time you ever try to stop me, you watch how I behave with you. If by being as the best person I could be, the most helpful person I could be, only attained me this humiliation and this embarrassment and this trauma for my family, and the next time I was going to pay back with dividends, which I did. A normal paedophile, a rapist, a murderer, even he has the right to remain silent. And a police officer has to use his mind to try to engage with a person of that level. But in a Schedule 7, you have to answer every single question, and if you don't, that in itself is an offence.
If you refuse to answer any of your questions, it is an offence under paragraph 18, subsection 1 of Schedule 7. Okay. The offence would be to willfully fail to comply.
Even if you know the answer?
Yes.
And on my last trip where I was charged for, on that plane was a medical emergency. An announcement was made on the plane that if anybody with medical knowledge, please make yourself available to one of the staff, the air stewardesses, which I did. I helped the person, people were asking me questions on the way there, on the way back, and I was actually allowed to be the first person to leave the plane when the plane landed. Whilst I was at immigration and 4 officers surrounded me, and when I was being escorted to an isolated room near the back of the airport, I actually happened to bump into the lady who was the mother of the person who had the medical emergency. And I asked her in Urdu language, "Are you okay?" And she turned around and looked at me and realized that I was surrounded by officers and said, "I'm okay, but are you okay, son?" And I said, what can I do, Auntie? It's just one of those things. And she said, her words still, I remember her words. She said to me, we will never have honor in this country. And she said that in Urdu. And then I was led away to the interrogation room. So other people, even if they don't go through the Schedule 7 process, will sometimes witness what it's like for the people being stopped. The officer who stopped me had blonde hair, tanned, makeup, nails done. And for some reason, she came in very aggressive and very hard in the way that she was approaching me. At this point, I believe she became annoyed and realized that all the questions she was asking me, I'd already knew that I was going to be asked. So then she started to change the questions, to which I had to respond, and I did. Again, she didn't like the fact that I wasn't looking at her and I was only giving her one-word responses. This is in her witness statement. So then she told me that if I didn't start answering the way she wanted, I could be arrested. To which point, in front of everyone who was at immigration, I put my hands up like this and said, arrest me. Six officers, minimum, came running out of nowhere and all started telling me to calm down and put my arms down, even though I wasn't doing anything intimidating. I was then frog marched, where I then bumped into the lady that I helped for the medical emergency. I then was taken into the room, and as she started her questioning, I told the lady, the blonde-haired lady, that I wanted to pray, and we started talking over each other.
Are you refusing me to pray?
I'm not refusing to pray.
You've got all day. Remember the other colleague, what he said to you?
Yes.
Yeah, you've got all the time in the world. I would like to pray.
Well,
I would like to pray before I start anything. I'd like to pray.
I'm going to continue with
Well,
this.
you carry on doing that, and I'm going to be telling you that I need to pray. And I'm making it very clear that everything that we're saying together is not going to be made clear to me. I'm not going to be able to understand anything that you're saying to me. I would like to pray. If I get to pray, you'll be able to get to say whatever you want.
Then at the end of it, she calls for her sergeant and says, this man is not letting me do my spiel that I need to do. And he's talking over me because he wants to pray and he wants to have a drink of water. And the sergeant says, yes, let him drink water and let him pray. Now, I didn't know at the time, but in the court case, it turned out that the lady who was stopping me from praying was actually a Muslim. During the interview, I asked, when will I be arrested? When will I be taken to the police station? And they said to me, you've answered all of our questions. We've got no reason to arrest you. And I was let go. 3 days later, my solicitor told me that the same officers who had recorded the whole interview asked me every question that they wanted to, believed that I had not given my PIN number for my phone. And unfortunately, they needed to give the recording, which would prove who was telling the truth, me or the police officers. Was I ever asked for the PIN number? And the recording quite clearly shows I was never asked for the PIN number. At the end of the trial, I was very happy I won. The first time I was ever stopped under Schedule 7, I was cooperative, I was kind, I was courteous, I was trying to be as helpful as I can. It got me nowhere with the officers. I've now had over 40 stops, and the only consolation I have is I can be who I want to be in front of these officers. And all praises to Allah, only the mistakes are mine.